So I'm going to be using this and this, and we're going to turn this into this.
How hard can it be?
Tools we'll need for this job: a mains drill. If you don't have one, you need to rent one. If you don't have a mains drill, you can use a battery one, but a couple of spare batteries would really help. 37 litre plasterer's mixing bucket or something similar. You can get buckets that are graduated with measurements, so you know exactly how much water you're putting in. But if you don't have that, get yourself a measuring jug. You need to make sure that the amount of water that you put in is pretty much spot on, otherwise it's not going to work. Plasterer's mixing wand or something similar. Spare bucket for clean water to wash your trowel in between each load you put down. Trowel or float, whichever you want to call it. You can get full handle ones where you can stand around and actually spread it that way, but because the area I'm doing is quite small, I'm just going to do it on my hands and knees. Brush and a dustpan and brush so you can clean up the floor before you start. Primer of some description. Now I'm using Mapai self-leveling compound, so I'm using their primer. You can use PVA, but from all the reviews and the other notes I've seen, PVA doesn't give you the best finish. A proper primer specific to a self-leveler is the best option, and the reason for using it is that once you've cleared all the dust off the floor, putting the primer down seals the surface, so that when you put your self-leveling compound down, the existing surface doesn't absorb moisture from the mix, and that can weaken it and cause it to break up. So you need to use a primer of some description. And of course, self-leveling compound. I've initially bought 6 bags. I really don't know how many I need. The actual area that I'm covering is about 14 to 15 square meters, and I have 6 bags, and supposedly each one will do 5 to 6 square meters, but that's based on 3 millimeters depth. I know I've got spaces where it's certainly deeper than that by a fair bit. So as I'm doing the garage in 2 halves, once I've done the first half, I should be able to make a good guesstimate if I need to buy any extra bags to finish the front half. Okay, so first things first, need to sweep the floor as much as possible, and then we're going to hoover it so there's no bits left, so that when we put the primer down, it bites properly and actually adheres. If there's lots of dust left on the floor, it won't work properly. Down this side, I've got some shelving units that are not being shifted, so I'm not actually doing underneath there, it's the open floor area. So what I'm going to do is put like a small dam made out of wood, and then some masking tape just to make sure it's sealed down to the floor so there's no seepage. I'll show you that after it's done, but first of all, need to get the sweeping done. So that is the loose dust from this floor where it's been breaking up so badly. You can see in some places, and that's over 1 inch deep there. I'm not sure how this level will work on that, but we'll see. We also have dead mouse in here. That was the culprit that caused us to have to clear so much out of here. But you can see that's just from this small area. So I'm going to bag this up and now I'm going to hoover. Well, all my little dams are made up around the edge. what will happen is that once this side is done and finished, then everything up there will come up this end, and then I can do the second half of the floor. Key thing to remember with this for me is that although this is a self-leveler, I'm not necessarily looking for level, I'm looking for smooth. As you can see from the state of the floor, any of my wheeled benches or trolleys or whatever I've got in here, it's impossible to move them. So if I get a smooth floor that's got a little bit of undulation on it that's not dead flat, I don't really care actually. If it comes out dead flat, brilliant, and we'll try and see whether or not it is actually flat with spirit level, see if it comes out any good. Right, I'm going to go and reread the instructions on the primer before I put it down, and then time for a bit of lunch. Right, see you in a bit. Okay, right, so I'm using Mapai, I assume that's how you say it, Mapai, Primer G. Needs 1:1 with water up to 1:3 depending on the substrate. Now, bearing in mind how bad this floor is, I'm just going to go with a straight 1:1 mix to give it its strongest bond, I suppose. And drying time is 1 to 2 hours. It's just gone 3:30, so apply this now, 3, 4, 5, and I'll come back out at about 6 probably, and then I can get the self-lever down on this end tonight. 3 hours for walking on it once it's done, 12 hours for then applying another surface. But I've looked at other details saying that with the stuff that I want to move onto it, so I've got my workbench, which is on wheels admittedly, but it's still heavy. The bench naked is 140 kilos, but I've got shelf units and other bits which I've got to move over the surface. The main thing is the wardrobe, which is, it'll be not that heavy when it's empty, but if I've got to drag it, I need to make sure that everything has gone off properly. Supposedly this stuff, the self-leveler, once it's gone off, it's actually stronger than normal concrete, which I didn't realise, but I suppose it's flooring that needs a lot of traffic, so it kind of makes sense. So I've made up a 1:1 mix, probably needs a bit more mixing. It's not a sealed lid either. And I'm gonna pour it onto the floor. And one thing I didn't show in the tools needed is a roller. You want something that's got quite a big nap on it. The fine stuff for doing, we use it for glosses that has almost no nap on it. They're no good. You want something that's got a lot of fluff on it to make it work into the floor, supposedly. So I'm going to do this now, and it should only take a few minutes. It has a bluish colour to it, so it makes it a bit easier to see where you put it down, so you can make sure you cover everything. Just make sure you get into the corners, and I think that's all I need to tell you for the moment, so let's see what we can do. I don't know whether you can see it down there, but that whole area is covered now. It's 0.1 to 0.2 kilograms of the primer per square metre. So I've used about 3/4 of that 1 litre that I made up to do an area which is about 5 square metres, which is about right. Definitely wear eye protection. If you're using the roller and you're not using it on a long handle, it does splatter quite a bit. Make sure you've got nothing that's valuable that you don't want this stuff on. It's quite pungent smell, so keep the area ventilated while you're in it, or make sure you leave. Now, on a lot of the videos that I've looked at of what people are doing, they've already got a fairly smooth surface to work with, so they're working in a kitchen or lounge or just generally in the house, and the floor's generally quite flat anyway and very smooth. So using the roller is very easy because it's in full contact. Problem I've got in here is because some of the holes are so deep, the roller can't get in. So if you do have a really bad broken up surface like this one, probably worthwhile getting yourself a 2-inch paintbrush or something, sort of polyester, and then you can dab it in. I mean, I was able to get in with the edge of the roller to get all this finished, but it would make it easy if you had a brush where you could actually dab it in to actually get all the surfaces done anyway. So a roller's good, having a brush as well if you've got a really bad surface. If it's very smooth, you don't need the brush. Rollers works absolutely fine, and it spreads really easily because it's very wet. Okay, so that's 4 o'clock, so it's probably a little bit different to what you might need to do. I've had to tape up because I'm doing it in 2 sections. If you're doing this, ideally you want to do it in one go. Unfortunately, I can't. I don't have the room to put this other stuff somewhere else, and as would have it, British weather, it's absolutely teeming down outside, so I couldn't have put the stuff outside to do the whole thing in one go. Apart from anything else, if I'm looking at 2 days for this area to go off before I can move this stuff onto it, I can't leave this stuff outside for 2 days, and I've got nowhere to put it. There's no room in the house for it to go, so and I'd never get my workbench in there anyway. So I've got to do it in 2 goes. If you can do it in one go, that's the best way to do it. But I'll talk about that more when we get into actually putting down the mix. I'm hoping, because I only need a very thin layer across most of it, 2 bags should do this whole end. I'm hoping, but we'll see. Right, I'm going to go and get a fresh cup of tea, maybe something to nibble, and I'll be back in here around 6ish. Right, I think that's it for the moment. Right, if you've got any comments, leave them below, and if you haven't yet liked and subscribed, please do so, and we will see what kind of damage we can do with the self-leveling stuff later, which I've never done before. Right, okay, catch you later. Drill only, not hammer, especially with this new SDS chuck adjuster I've got. My previous Bosch one that I bought 20 years ago cost me 75 quid, and it's lasted forever, but it died last year, so I bought a new one. This is 21 quid, and this is Bosch as well, so nice bit of kit. Okay, so this is a 20 kilo bag of Mapai leveler. Mix requires 3.8 to 4 litres of water, and the water goes into the bucket first. Now I have a separate measuring jug. Just had to clean this out because it had my primer mix in from yesterday. So what I'm going to do is refill this with the full 2 litres extra for the full 4 litre mix, but I'm only going to pour in about 3.8, and then I can add the rest of it if I need to. As a wild guess, that's about right. Now the key thing you need to bear in mind when you're doing this, especially if you're doing this on your own, as I am today, is to make sure that you are fully prepared to not only do this bag, but then any subsequent bags you need to do afterwards. Ideally, If you have two people doing this, it makes it much easier. One person who's actually troweling and leveling, and the other person who's mixing up the next batch. A lot of the levelers that I looked at have a very, very short open time, so the amount of time that their material is workable. Anything from 5 to 15 minutes, which, to be honest, at 15 minutes is probably not too bad. I just don't know how much work I'll need to do to actually spread the material out and level the floor. But this one has 20 to 30 minutes of open time, which for me working on my own is really excellent, because it gives me plenty of time to put the mix down, spread it, and then come back and make up the next batch before the first batch goes off too much. So in essence that should help quite a lot. The other thing that came up was oh yeah, so when you're doing the mixing, do it on a slow speed. You don't want to do it fast. Like if you're whisking up eggs or something, you whisk them up really fast to get lots of air into them. Same thing happens with this. If you mix it too quickly, you end up with lots of air bubbles in there, so when you actually pour the stuff on the ground, unless you've actually got a spiked roller to actually burst all the bubbles or bring all the bubbles to the surface, so you end up with a much smoother finish, you'll end up with a really bobbly surface. So a slow mix, and when you've got most of the mix done, is go around the edge with a trowel to release any dry materials off the side of the bucket, so then you can remix and make sure it's all mixed in with everything else, so you don't end up with the dry spots. If you do have any unmixed material when you put it down on the floor, you can break it up with a trowel and spread it so it ends up being a smooth finish, so that's not necessarily a major problem. What I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to clear a little bit of the floor on the other half of the garage, just in case I have any excess that I need to pour away, and what I'll do is use it to fill in any larger holes at this end that I can get to easily. Hopefully there won't be any, but we'll see. Right, I'm going to get that prepped, and then in a minute I will show you the mix, and then we'll get on with the pour. Okay, another recommended tip for mixing this up is to put half the bag in first, get that mixed through, and then you can add the rest afterwards. Let's see how long mixing this takes. So that's 11 minutes past. Very, very fine dust. You want to mix this outside. One other little tip that I noticed from a driveway repair job I was doing. I was reprofiling someone's drive last week. I was mixing up some high strength 40 Newton concrete, and the mixer tries to pull clockwise. So when you're mixing, try and aim the drill so you're going anti-clockwise, and it slows how quick it goes round, and also it stops your wrists getting caught and jarred as well. Got my trowel at the ready. Right. The mixing wand actually causes whatever's at the bottom to lift up, so you don't have to go from the top to push down. So if it stays at the bottom, it will push the wetter mixture at the bottom up into the dry materials above it. Seems quite thick and goopy. I think I am going to add the last bit of water. So total weight of this bucket will be 24 kilos. If you haven't got strong wrists or shoulders, or forearms to be honest, actually, you may need two people to carry it to wherever you need to go in. And of course, with it being the wettest mixture that it can be for the recommendations, it should spread more easily. Right, here we go. Okay, 15 minutes to mix, 3 minutes to spread. Need to get a move on. Okay, only 5 minutes to mix up the second bucket, but that's because I was busy nattering to you guys on the first one. So far it's gone down beautifully. There's a patch over here where it's a bit thinner where I poured it, where there's some stones sticking through, so I'm going to fix that first and then work from this corner over. See a few bubbles popping up over on the first batch down over here, but it's smoothed off into the first load really nicely, actually, really nicely. Right, hope for the last bucket for this. God, it looks good in the picture there, nice shine. I've got a patch over here that I need to top up, hopefully it'll go on all right. There are definitely going to be some bits that are not dead flat. There's some of the existing stuff that's going to be just poking through like 0.5 millimetre. But I can live with that. Right, let's see whether or not 3 buckets will actually finish this whole area. Makes a great sound when you pour it. Weird. I'll also be so glad to get a level floor after this. These stones are killing my knees. Okay, now unfortunately, got a little bit of leakage on my dam at the front here. I hope that's not going to be too much of a problem. What I don't want is for it to be draining away from inside there and leave a dried out, weak join or something that gives me a weird level that I can't actually match up when I do this side. But the surface looks pretty good. There are some bubbles up there, you can see the little light patches. I think they've come and gone. There's also a very weird spot there. I might be able to patch that up, but it's going to be underneath a wardrobe, so I'm not going to see that, so it's not actually really going to be an issue, but we'll see. But overall, that's gone down quite nicely. Okay, so that was, let's have a look. So that's basically 1 hour to do 3 bags. So I think we can safely say 20 minutes a bag. Most of the leveling compounds I looked at and had the reviews on, 15 minutes max. So if you've got a 15-minute setting compound, you've got to have a second person to help you, otherwise it just won't work. This stuff is 20 to 30 minutes. So I was at the bottom end of the setting time, and I think they've gone together quite well. In terms of letting it set, walking dry in 3 hours for this stuff. In 12 hours you can add a latex or some other surface onto the top of it, and anything between 1 and 3 days for moving stuff onto it. So I'm going to go in the middle and do 2 days. It is Friday morning, 11 o'clock. So what I'm going to look to do is on Sunday morning, 11 o'clock, is to come in here and start moving all of my rubbish. Well, not rubbish, but you know what I mean. So I can then start prepping the floor in this side, which again is sweep, hoover, put down the primer. I don't think I've got any little wooden dams to build on this side. No, so I don't have to worry about that. But probably what I will do is, before I move stuff at that end, is to take those dams off and cut off the tape with a Stanley knife or something. And hopefully it should be nice and flat. So I will tidy up my stuff. I'm going to go and buy some more bags. I've used 3. I bought 6, and just doing kind of square footage, that's just under 50 square foot. This end is 85 square foot. So 5 should be enough, but I'm going to buy 6, just in case. It may be that before I start, once I've tidied everything up, if I'm undecided, once I put the primer down, I might go and buy a 7th, but we'll see. Right, so at the end of doing that, I will go through timings for everything and the prices for materials and all the tools and bits that I bought for it. So you've got an idea how much it's going to cost and how long it's going to take you. And that's it for the time being. Have a good one, and I will see you again in, well, a couple of seconds, but a couple of days. See you soon. Right, morning everyone. Right, we're 2 days along, so we're going to have a look, see if this floor's actually level. Seems to have dried out okay. There's a little spot here where it's actually leaked through. It's discoloured, and I'm not sure how it's going to work, but hopefully when we put the rest of it down we can sort that out. Right, I have trusty old Stanley level. Let's see how level it actually is. Well, it's not dead level, but it's not far off. And where are we? Slightly high on the left. Mind you, bear in mind this spirit level is 22 years old, so it might be slightly off. Well, that's looking pretty good, and ooh, look at that. That's slap bang in the middle. And this way is probably most important because that's where there was one port and then another, so there's a bit of a dip in the middle there. So it's ever so slightly off. So if I was going to be tiling this or something similar, I'd probably want to put another cut over the top. But this is smooth, which is what I'm after. And it's slightly high to the left. Over that length, that's about 2 millimeters higher on the left. That's too bad. Right, quite chuffed with that actually. So the job now is to get rid of all the wooden dams from around the edges. This one here will stay because I've got the rest of this corner to do as I move forward down the garage. And then all of that, that has got to come up this end. Now I did measure it, it should fit. I'll probably just do this on time lapse just so you can see it. It'll take 10-15 seconds. In real time I think it'll probably take me about 3 hours. Right, so I will see you again very, very soon. Got any questions? Leave them in the comments below, and if you haven't already done so, like and subscribe, and click the icon bell, and I'll see you very soon. Okay, so managed to get all that shifted up to the back. I did actually originally think that this shelf unit could actually stay as 2 shelves, but I've had to trim it down to 1 because it was about 10 centimetres too short. I must have had an odd measuring day. So all that shifted up, and now the front area is clear. So back to doing all the stuff that I did first time round. So I sweep everything off, hoover. I don't need to build any dams because I think the height at the front down here, so the front edge, is actually higher than in here. So as this flows out, it should smooth out onto that, and hopefully that should help with the issue I have with some water actually coming underneath the door. So I'm going to carry on with that. I'll put down the primer today once that's all done. So probably looking at 20 to 12 now. Probably be done by about 1. And that includes the primer. Needs 2 hours to dry. But there's a Grand Prix on today and we're going out to dinner tonight. So I will get that stuff prepared. And tomorrow morning I will get the rest of the levelling down in the front. I just probably need to do a little bit of prep on the edge of the existing floor that I've poured. A couple little thin bits have broken off as I've been moving stuff up there, and the area where there was a little bit of seepage. Probably need to do a little bit of prep on that, but where it's really nice and thin, I can actually cut that with a Stanley. But as it is, once this is all down, when it's all dried and complete, if I do actually have a ridge on that bit, I actually can sand it. So you can use, seen people use 120 or 80 grit to sand it down to get a smooth join between the two, which is great. Right, okay, I will see you again soon, and next time you see this, it should be cleared and prepped with the primer. Cool, right, see you in a bit. Now I do have a slight ridge, as you can see from the shadow there, where the self-leveler had kind of rode up the side of the tape that I had, but just using one of these gets rid of it very nicely. Rather than mucking about with it later, once I've poured the other, as the front half of the garage, I'm just going to get that done along the whole length, and then it's just a case of me managing how the pour goes down, and then just making sure it doesn't overlap that too much. I can still sand that if it does happen to overlap a little bit, but getting that trimmed off actually seems to be working quite nice. Right, there we go. Back soon. Right, welcome back everyone. Right, we're on to the last day of the pour. So primer's down and it's all ready to go. I'm not going to show you anything other than time lapse of getting this last bit down, but there are two extra things that have come up. In the floor over here, there's one particularly deep area, which is probably an inch or so deep. So what I'm going to do is, when I make up the first mix, is I'm going to put a small amount in there to begin with, and then work on the rest of the floor. And as it's taking about 20 minutes per bag to mix and put it down, by the time I get back to it, I'm hoping it will have gone off a bit, so then I can put the next layer on top. It's not ideal, but it should work, hopefully. The rest of the floor is not too bad. There's just a lot of it that is broken up. And the only other thing I've done is at the front here, I've put a masking run tape, or a double run, to try and capture whatever flows up to the front. And even if I've got too much of an edge there, what I'll do is I can sand it back down to give a smooth edge afterwards. So just where it's tipped up a little bit, just to catch it. Hopefully that will stop too much running out. And we are quarter time, so I've been moving stuff about for about half an hour just to get ready. Back area was 50 square feet, and that was an hour. This front area is about 85 square feet, so 2 hours max. There's quite a lot of the area actually that's quite flat. So in theory, I shouldn't actually need anywhere near the 7 bags that I've got. Might be able to do it in 4 or 5, but we'll see. Right, I'll see you when we're done, and fingers crossed. Okay, so pour is done. Reasonably happy with it actually. There's a few air bubbles, but I'm not going to worry too much about that. A few tips for you to bear in mind if you're going to do this. Make sure to watch a few videos first, like this one. Different people have different ways of doing it. They're also using different products, so they give you an idea of which one you can use or what might be available where you are. If you're doing an outdoor room like a garage, ideally you want to have a dry day. I was looking to do one of these days when it was pouring with rain. I thought actually it'd be a really bad idea, because where I am, the rain comes in from over in this direction, this way. So it would have ruined the mix at the front. So it needs to be a dry day. You don't want it too hot, too cold. We've got 18 degrees today, I think it's maybe 19. And it's cloudy as well, so there's no direct sunlight, so it's not going to make everything go off too quickly. And ideally you want to have a day that's very still. Today's a little bit windy, certainly a lot windier than a couple of days ago when at the back of the garage. And I've actually got some bits of muck that have blown in on the leveler at the front here. Not a massive problem, but if you wanted something that was, you know, a proper finish with nothing on it, it might be a bit annoying. So a still day would be a better day if possible. Right, make sure you have all the tools you need. You don't want to start and then suddenly go, oh no, I needed that. There were a couple of bits that I didn't get. I didn't get the spiked roller, mainly because I'm not looking for a dead flat surface. I'm looking for a nice smooth surface, and you saw what the ground was like here. It was massively uneven and really painful to stand on. So a smooth surface that's generally flat for me is more than enough. If I wanted something that was absolutely perfectly flat, I'd have got someone in to do it. But it's close enough. You know, it's 99% dead flat. That's good enough for me for a workshop, so I'm quite happy. So with your tool list, make sure you've got everything you need. One thing that I didn't include, that I didn't mention on the tools that I showed you at the beginning, was a spray bottle. Now, when I put the primer on at the back, I used a roller, and where the floor was really uneven, it was very difficult to actually get into the dips. So it made it very, very difficult to get it in. But I watched a couple more videos and I actually saw one guy using a spray bottle. I thought, actually, that's a brilliant idea for this. Now, his floor was dead flat, so a roller would have worked on it absolutely fine. But I got a spray bottle and I used that to put the mix in on this surface on this end. Works an absolute treat. So a spray bottle to put it in if you've got a really, really uneven floor would be a good idea. Otherwise, if it's generally quite smooth, a roller will be good enough. Certainly worked on the flat areas where down this side and that side where it was very flat, the roller worked beautifully. Right, take time to calculate the materials that you need. Look at the product that you want to use, look at the coverage, but make sure you look at the depth for the coverage that material is going to give you. This particular one would do 4 to 5 square meters at a 3mm depth. Now, because of the undulation of this floor here, there's no way I was going to get 5 meters out of a bag. In some areas I was getting barely a meter, maybe just over. So very, very difficult for me to do that, and partly there's 2 reasons why I did it in 2 parts. One, because I didn't actually know how much I needed, and because I split it into 2 parts, I could kind of work out if I used that much at the back, I'd roughly be able to work out what I needed at the front. Now, as it turned out, I needed 3 for the back, which was 48 square feet, and I worked that up to say I would need 6 for the 85 square feet at the front. As it turned out, I used exactly 6 bags, which was brilliant. Yeah, I could have got that really wrong, but no, that worked fine. When you're doing this, if you can have a second person helping you, it will make things much, much easier. One person to mix, one person to lay, and that way it reduces the time for whatever's on the ground to be setting. Now, particularly if you use another make of self-leveler, this one had a very, very long open time. 20 to 30 minutes is the longest I've seen on any product. I didn't get it for that reason. That just happened to be a bonus. When I looked at the reviews on the product, everyone raved about it, and it was the cheapest. So I'm not going to argue. But there are some levelers that are anything as low as 5 minutes up to 15 minutes in terms of time for it going off. And if you've got to spend 5 minutes putting it down and then 10 minutes making up the next batch, then you've got no workability with the stuff you've already put down. So if you've got a second person mixing for you, that will help massively, because you can spend 5 minutes doing, and then you've only got 5 minutes to wait for the next load to be ready. Don't rush the mix. Yeah, do it slowly on a slow speed. If you do it too fast, you end up with lots of air bubbles. Now, I tried to do it relatively slow speed. Unfortunately, I don't have a speed setting on my drill. It's 20 years old. It's a good drill, but it doesn't have any speed settings on it. If you've got one that's got a low speed, high torque setting, which would be ideal for this kind of mix, use it. Don't try and speed the process up by doing it fast. You'll end up with air bubbles everywhere. It's unsightly. If you want a nice smooth finish, it won't work. So do it slowly, but yes, have a second person helping you if you can. If possible, do the lay in one go, not 2. Across the center here, I'm going to have a joint of some kind. I've tried to get the levels between the 2 as even as possible. I'm not entirely sure that it's worked though. So probably what I'm going to have to do is either mix up a small batch of the leveler, or I might just get a filler and actually fill in any gap and then sand it down so it's smooth. That should work absolutely fine. That's it for the tips, and time for some costs. Okay, so the product I use, both parts were made by Mapai. I've never seen it before, but the reviews on both of them were very, very good. The primer was called Primer G, and that 5 litre bottle was £25. I've used about 1.5 litres of the product mixed 1 to 1, so 3 litres total. So 1 litre of water, 1 litre of the primer. First load was completely used, and then I made another 1 litre of primer, 1 litre of water, and then I used half of that. So 3 litres total, but only 1.5 litres of the actual primer. In terms of wasted money, I don't think so. Probably could have done it cheaper with PVA, but looking at all the reviews on different products people are using, PVA is not the best. But again, the reason for the primer is to stop the old concrete surface drawing the moisture out of the mix that you're putting down. If you do that, you end up with cracking and delaminating. Then you'd have to knock the whole lot out and start again. So not worth doing. The time spent putting the primer down is worth it. And then the self-leveling compound, I think it's Mapai self-leveling 1210 is that one. I got it from Screwfix, and it was £15 a bag, which is an absolute bargain, because looking at everything else, they were 20, 25, £30 a bag, some even more expensive than that. But looking at all the reviews, I've looked at maybe 8 different self-leveling products. The reviews on that one were the best out of all of them. Easy to use, easy to mix, didn't really get any lumps in it. Mix it slowly and you don't get too much in the way of air bubbles. Spreads really well, cleans up really nicely afterwards. And you've already seen the back end of the garage. What I'll do is, when I'm finished here, is in a couple of days I'll finish this off by having it under the floor as it is now. Sorry, as it is then, in 2 days when it's done. But product's great. So total area that we've done is, I think it's just over 14 square metres, and the total cost, assuming the cost of the whole bottle of primer, because I had to buy the whole 5 litres, is £160. It seems a bit of a bargain to me. 160 quid, and I think that's good value for money. And in terms of time, right, so time-wise, it's probably not necessarily going to apply to you, because my time included me moving all my rubbish about. If you were going to do this in one go, and you had the situation where you didn't have too much stuff to move out of the way, you could move everything out and then do the floor in one go. It'd be much, much quicker. For me, because I don't have anywhere to store this stuff, I had to move everything to the front so I could do the back, wait 2 days, move everything to the back so I could do the front. So for me, total time for everything, getting tools together, organising the garage space, put the primer down, cleaning up afterwards, everything, 9.5 hours. So you could easily do a space this size in a day. And there we go. Right, the end of the video will be some video or pictures of this floor when it's gone off, which I'll do in a couple of days' time, which will be Wednesday night. And hopefully I'll have this video out by next weekend. Right, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope there's stuff in there that you found useful. If you've got any questions, leave them in the comments. And if you like the video, give me a like. And if you want to see some more, give me a subscribe. And I will see you again very soon. Right, I've got a couple of different balls to test to see how flat this is. Let's have a look, see what happens. Okay. That's actually pretty flat. Oh, coming back. Yeah, please. pleased with that. Well, it does look like there's a bit of a ridge in the middle here. I've got the level almost spot on, I think. It's within a millimetre. It's not perfect, however, I should be able to sand that down and get it smooth, and then any gaps in there, which I don't think there will be, I can probably fill in with a liquid cement just to get it properly smooth. But even if I just get it sanded down, that is going to be a million times better than what I had previously. A few air bubbles here and there, but that really isn't a problem. I am really, really happy with the result. Really happy. Yes, it's probably not dead flat, but I'm not going to complain. Right, so there we go. Floor is complete. I've moved back in. All my gear is in, and I seem to have more space than I did before somehow. The floor is not absolutely dead flat, but it's close enough for what I need, and everything moves about really, really easily now. The room's much brighter, which is weird, but great. I hope you enjoyed this and found something useful in there. If you've got any questions, leave them in the comments. If you've got any comments, leave them in the comments. And if you haven't yet done it, so like and subscribe, and hope share this video. And I will see you again very soon with some more possible DIY videos, but more likely to be some woodworking stuff. I know at the very back I've got the windowsill and frame to get fixed there, so that'll probably come out very soon. Right, thank you for watching, and I'll see you again very soon. Cheers.